Captain Marcus Chen had served alongside Arya for 3 years aboard the Defiant, humanity's first deep space exploration vessel. In all that time, through countless battles with the hegemony forces and diplomatic missions to alien worlds, he had never seen her face. The mask she wore wasn't standard issue. While the rest of the human crew donned their regulation helmets and breathing apparatus when necessary, Arya's was different. Sleek, featureless, with a mirror-like surface that reflected everything but revealed nothing. She claimed it was a medical necessity, something about atmospheric sensitivity, and Marcus had never questioned it, until today. The Defiant hung in orbit around Kepler 442b, a world the Galactic Council had designated as neutral territory for the peace negotiations. The war between humanity and the HFY hegemony had raged for 7 years, ever since first contact had gone catastrophically wrong. What had started as humanity's eager attempt to join the galactic community had devolved into a brutal conflict that now threatened to consume both species. Marcus stood in the observation deck, watching the planet's twin suns cast long shadows across its violet continents. The negotiations would begin tomorrow, and if they failed, humanity's small fleet would face annihilation. The hegemony's ships outnumbered them 1,000 to 1. "You're worried," Arya said. Her voice filtered through the mask's modulator into something melodious but artificial. He turned to face her. As always, she moved with an uncanny grace, as if she knew exactly where every object in the room was positioned. Her uniform, like his, bore the insignia of the Human Defense Corps, but somehow it looked different on her, more elegant, more refined. "Wouldn't you be?" Marcus asked. "Tomorrow decides whether humanity survives as a free species or becomes another conquered world in their empire." Arya stepped closer to the viewport, her reflection joining his in the transparent aluminum. "The hegemony fears you, you know. All of you. Us? We're barely holding our own with a dozen ships against their armada. That's exactly why they fear you." She turned toward him, and he caught his own reflection in her mask's surface. "Do you know what the other species call humans in their diplomatic channels?" Marcus shook his head. "Kethamar Dai. It translates roughly to the impossible ones." Every military engagement humanity has fought, by all calculations, you should have lost. Your ships are slower, your weapons less advanced, your numbers pathetically small. Yet somehow, you keep winning. "Luck," Marcus said, "and stubborn refusal to give up." "No." Arya's voice carried a strange tone he'd never heard before. Something, almost like sadness. "It's because you protect each other. When a HFY ship is damaged, the fleet abandons it. When a Corlin vessel falls behind, it's considered acceptable losses. But humans? You'll risk an entire fleet to save one ship. You'll charge into certain death for a single crew member." She was right, Marcus realized. Just last month, they'd lost 3 fighters rescuing the crew of a damaged transport. Command had called it tactically unsound, but every human in the fleet had volunteered for the mission. "The hegemony has studied your species extensively," Arya continued. "They've identified the source of your unusual combat effectiveness. It's not technology or strategy. It's that you're willing to die for each other. That makes you unpredictable, dangerous. It makes you human." Marcus studied her reflection in the viewport. "How do you know so much about hegemony intelligence?" For a long moment, she didn't answer. Then slowly, she reached up toward her mask. "Marcus, before I show you something, I need you to promise me something." "What?" "Promise me that what you see won't change how you feel about your crew, about your mission, about protecting the people you care about." Something cold settled in Marcus's stomach. "Arya, what are you talking about?" Her hands found the seal releases on her mask. "You asked me once why I always wear this. I told you it was medical, and that was..." partially true. The mask hissed as it disengaged, and Arya pulled it away from her face. Marcus stared in shock. The features looking back at him were unmistakably feminine, but the skin had a subtle blue-gray tint, and her eyes were the deep violet of a HFY noble class. Delicate ridges ran along her cheekbones, and when she spoke, he could see the slightly pointed teeth of a predator species. "My real name is Ariath Voice," she said, her voice now carrying the musical tones of her native language beneath the human words. "I'm a HFY military intelligence officer, assigned to infiltrate your ship and gather information on human tactical capabilities." Marcus's hand moved instinctively toward his sidearm, but something in her expression stopped him. "I was supposed to report back after 6 months," she continued. "That was 3 years ago. I've sent exactly one report to my superiors, that humanity poses no significant military threat and can be easily contained through standard blockade procedures." "Why?" The word came out as barely a whisper. Ariath, looked out at the planet below. "Because in 3 years of watching your species, I learned something my people never understood. You don't fight for conquest or territory or resources. You fight for each other. And somehow, impossibly, you extended that protection to me, a stranger, an alien, someone you had no reason to trust. Marcus, do you know how many times you've put yourself in danger to keep me safe?" Marcus thought about it. The boarding actions where he'd positioned himself between Arya and enemy fire, the times he'd ordered her to evacuation points first, the way he'd instinctively moved to shield her during the explosion on Deck 7. "You protected me," she said softly, "even though you didn't know what I was, even though protecting me served no tactical advantage. You did it because that's what humans do. And if I reported the truth, that every human ship fights with the effectiveness of 10 because of that bond, my people would glass your entire solar system rather than face you in open war." Marcus found his voice. "So you've been lying to both sides." "I've been protecting both sides." She put the mask back on, the seals engaging with a soft hiss. "Tomorrow's negotiations will succeed, Marcus. I've spent 3 years ensuring they would, because I've seen what humanity could become if you're allowed to spread among the stars, and I've seen what my people become when they face an enemy they truly fear." She turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. "You asked why I always wore the mask," she said. "It's because if you saw what I really was, you'd stop protecting me. And if you stopped protecting me, I couldn't protect you." Marcus stood alone in the observation deck for a long time after she left, watching the twin suns set on a world where 2 species would decide each other's fate. For the first time since the war began, he felt something like hope, because Arya was right about humanity. They protected each other, all of each other, even the ones who might not deserve it, even the ones who were supposed to be the enemy. And tomorrow, when the negotiations began, that impossible human trait might just save both their species.